Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniatures, and it's Friday, at least when I filmed this, or posted it, or what have you. And that means it's time for more Obscurities in Literature. And now this book in front of us was quite a fabled find many moons ago when I first discovered its existence, because it is not just one, but one of many, and these are the Bandai Entertainment Bibles. And yes, much like the Holy Scriptures, they contain within these pages all of the most important and necessary information, well, in this case, for hardcore nerds. But yeah, the Entertainment Bible series, at least from my understanding, and I've pieced this together somewhat, and I really should probably do some more research, at least in Japanese, or have my kids at least do it for me, was a series of books that started in the early 90s, and I want to say continued up until the 2000s. I remember purchasing some even at that point. And at least to my knowledge, there's probably over 50 books, because I know I had some in the 40s. Now, I don't own anywhere close to a whole complete collection. I would love to, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. I absolutely would love to expand my collection of these, but they're just getting a lot more pricey than what I paid back in the day. I probably paid, I was looking if there's a book off sticker on it, I probably paid under $5 for these. Yeah. Some of these were definitely more pricier than others. Some of them were a lot thicker than others, and some of them have a lot more color pages than others. But what these things have, and I'll show you a couple others here in a sec. The Entertainment Bibles were just that. They had all the important stuff of every genre, nerdy, focused, I don't know, character, license, show. I'm trying to think of a different word, but it's not coming out of my mouth right now. That basically existed in Japan from the late 60s until the day these ceased publication. So let's talk about these. Let's take a look at the first one here. So in the days before the internet, if you ever wanted to see like line art for any of the mecha stuff, these were the books to go to. Now, eventually we would see what are called the mobile suit encyclopedias. Those would get published, and actually those were basically a rehash of these, which are a rehash of even earlier works that I'm not even familiar with, but I know they exist. This book in particular focuses on the 1 Year War of Gundam. Start off with a nice little synopsis here. Some nicely illustrated early 80s artwork. The Zaku art doesn't look super familiar to me. Maybe Sparkle Trout can chime in. It doesn't look like Kondo art. I know that. More on the ground, back up in space at Jaburo. That's not Jaburo, is it? I don't remember. It's been years since I watched the original show. And so you get a basic lineup of a lot of the early suits. And so a lot of these are the MSV mobile suit variation stuff. Heavy Gundams. All the various Zaku types. Perfect Gundam. GM trainers. Light armors. Snipers. And the Zaku tank. Marine types. I hated all Marine types thanks to those SD Gundam G-Century games. But yeah, so quite a bit here. You get into some of the mobile armors, some of the more funky stuff. And then here's where things start to get really interesting. So we have a breakdown of the history and pedigree of the Zeon mobile suits here. Starting with the MS-05, the Zaku Mark 1, and where things branch out to. Some of the line art variations, which we see more later on in the book. Line art of some of the various Anaheim Electronics, Federation stuff. Again, more art. An ability symmetry of MS. So we actually do get some of the early stat blocks for the various types of... We've got their designations, their weights, generator output, thruster output, sensor range, and then a breakdown of the weapons. So, as somebody who spent extensive time playing a lot of the old strategy games, it's interesting to see that they already had a lot of this stuff laid out from even back then. As we're going to skip through this, the mobile armor stats. Here's where things get pretty interesting. So we have like a breakdown of how the timeline works in Gundam. I'm going to skip through that. We actually get some cross sections of some of the various things, and I can't remember seeing that in any of the other books I have. I'm not going to show you all of them. Cockpit layout for a typical mobile suit. Can't remember seeing those. That looks familiar. Pilot manual. But then we get into the actual line art. Now, I had a lot larger book that had a lot of this stuff. And this, what's cool is this is just one of many. And I mean many. And a lot of this stuff would end up getting consolidated later on into various bigger and larger books as the Gundam series chugged along over decades of shows, spin-offs, comics, sequels, what have you. I mean, it's ongoing still. As judging by the guys I just found at Target the other day. But that's just the beginning of the line, and things start to get really interesting as the line starts to develop. So these were truly some of my holy grail Bible books. Those are the SD catalogs, obviously. I absolutely loved SD Gundams. I with no exaggeration, no hyperbole, I've literally probably built, at least up until the last few years, and even then, with the exception of a few, probably I'd say about 90% of all the kits that they've ever released over time. I didn't build a lot of the very, very first ones. Not that these are them. These are the actual eraser figures. Little gotcha type guys, of which there are many that I didn't even know existed, which is kind of cool. These are even before my time. And they just keep going. Here we are into the 200s. Gallop. Mobile armor forms. We get into some of my personal favorites, all the Musha armor stuff. Now here's where I started collecting, I think. A lot of these got re-released with the original PlayStation 1 SD Gundam G Generation game. Now these, I have not built any, that I can remember at least. These are the very first SD Gundam kits where they actually had legs, but then we switched over at some point to the more traditional squished up one for many, many years. These are not them, those are the toy ones. Of which there were quite a few. And then what I always wanted, what I always coveted, were the SD Gundam cloth figures, where they had a figure and then you had to build all the armor on top of them, inside. I just don't know what I was going to try to say there. I mean, boring, regular, typical Sazabi, new Gundam, Yakushiki, but then they started to get into the crazier, funkier stuff like the Musha Gundams, which was what I always wanted. We get into more of the Cardass stuff. Interesting stuffed Valkyrie there. Now this I didn't even know existed, but B Club SD Gundams. Interesting proportions there. Good luck finding any of those, as those are long gone garage kits. We get into some of the old video games. This looks much like, oh yeah, Scramble Wars. I was going to say the Gachapon stuff. We used to play G-Century Gachapon X on the Super Famicom, and that was our go-to game for many, many years. Oh, the good times that were had. But again, just like the first book, we get all sorts of line art. Now, most of the places you would see this stuff is actually in the model kits. Don't recall seeing much of the Zaccarello cross-section. Bit of the SD Gundam comics. Whee. And then part 2 is when we start to see the actual SD Gundam model line really start to kick off, but we get even more of the little 100 yen trading figures in this book. They continue on and on and on and on and on and on and on. More of the cloth models. No, those aren't, but they're in here too. Just, I love the flash. The pizzazz of the SD stuff. The Command Gundam, of which I just purchased one at Target. Obviously not an SD one, as I was saying. Some of the other SD Musha Gundam cloths. You can get the full-size ones, which are about 1/100th scale, which will run you about $200 or $300 plus these days. Kicking myself for the time that I saw one for $100, and it was in absolutely pristine condition, and I didn't take the jump. Collectible Gundam coins. I mean, there's just so much stuff in these books. Is that it? Yep, that was an engram. Why is there an SD engram? I don't know. Here we get into the card stuff. Eventually. One of these books, maybe it was the third one, I don't even know. The Superior Defender. Getting back on track, we have fantasy-themed Gundam model barbarians. Who doesn't want to have this stuff on the tabletop? I do. I would love to see something like that. Anybody's crazy enough to see that to fruition with me, by all means, get in touch. And here we start to see some of the other books. We've got 3 Mobile Suit Encyclopedias, Votom, Studio New, who did like Macross and things, Godzilla, Thunderbirds, of which there's 2 volumes, I know, and then Dunbine. Dunbine, this was one of my Holy Grail books as well. Took me forever to finally track this sucker down, and it was expensive for the longest time. Now, Dunbine was the very first set of models I ever built. We get some of the history of Byston Well. At one point or another, AD Vision did actually translate, I think, the entire show. I don't know if it's available in any other format other than DVDs from back in the day. The Dunbine, the Billbine I absolutely built. Just trying to find the very first kit. I know my other brother that lives in Japan, the Great Sage of Wisdom, one of the first he ever bought was the Ghetto, and all of these were actually like wires, and it sucked donkey breath. The Bastol, that was the very first model kit, or at least modern Japanese model kit that I ever built. And I built it wrong, and I painted it with like Humboldt paints or something like that, and I absolutely loved the crap out of it. And then I broke it. Oh yes, the Bochun and the Viaras, both of which I have built. Never built a Zork, that I can recall at least. Some of the other weird stuff. And that's the other cool thing about these books, is they just have so much of the funk that has been long forgotten. The Servine and the OVA's worth. You can see their influence, that bio-organic style armor here. I don't recall any of this artwork from anything, but they have like the history of Byston Well. Again, cross sections of all sorts of stuff, but the best part is we've got line art from everybody and everything, all the major characters, the OVA stuff even. I didn't even remember that being in this book. I swear to God, this guy's armor looks so familiar, and I cannot remember what artist designed stuff like this. I don't know, it looks so familiar. But then we get the line art for the actual mecha. This is something, one of the reasons that I've wanted this for so long was just to get a good long look at some of these mechs. Even the OVA stuff's in here. Some of the big mobile armors that they use. The headquarters carrier ships. The monsters that show up. Even we have some of the technical stuff, like when the doorway opens back to the earth. I mean, it's just cool stuff. I would love to someday track down the Votom's one, but I'll show you guys one more here real quick. One of the most obscure ones I ever came across was Go Nagai's World of Demons. That's just such a very specific topic. And it's incredibly thicker compared to the rest of them. And what's crazy about this book, as I try not to get myself in trouble and censored for all of the copious amounts of nudity that exist in this thing, some of this looks super familiar, and some of this even I have absolutely no idea what it comes from. So we get into the main Devilman section. There's bits and pieces here. I don't even know where they're coming from. I mean, and I own the whole thing in English and in Japanese. And I'm still scratching my head on some of what some of these are. I mean, they're just like, must be background stuff, but they've got like a whole blurb on every one of them in here. I haven't bothered to try to translate them. The kanji are just too much for me. I don't remember you. Like, I own the books. I think that's supposed to be what he's looked like. See, some of this stuff, it's like they were Bill Psycho Jenny. Like these. I mean, I don't know if they were just like concepts that they sketched out and then never used and they just put them in here to fill the pages. But this is absolutely like, it's like a Go Nagai monster manual. And I think that's probably why I love it so much. I just enjoy all the general weirdness. Yep. Like a radiata. And it's just page after page of just crazy monsters. And once we finish with Devilman, which again, there's stuff in here I don't even recognize. Like that. Good old Zan. Then we get into the Mal Dante. And Dante itself. Good old Xenon. Again, we start to see things that I don't remember, but then again, I haven't seen the Mal Dante manga in many, many years. Looking like one of the Bem monsters from the other anime that was popular in like the late 60s. Just general weirdness. And I don't even know what this is. Bourbonba. Okay, Go Nagai. Yeah, Go Nagai is an acquired taste and is yeah, sometimes a little too much even for me. I made the mistake once of trying to read Hanape Bazooka. Yeah. Don't go looking that one up. And what you saw coming out of that guy's crotch absolutely was a bunch of tentacle things. Yep. So just, and here, this is volume 28, and you can start to see how much other stuff SD Gundam Pramodel Guidebook, that's what I want. L Game book, Art Mic, Patlabor, Zabungle, another Art Mic book, Gundam Promo, VFAM, Yamato, Uchu Senkan, the Spaceship Space Battleship. Yeah, I can't get it out of my mouth, God. I know there's multiple Godzilla books, Ultraman, Macross. I know there's a Macross 2 book out there. There's a ton of these things. Problem is, sellers these days want like an arm and a leg, usually charging like a minimum of $40. And thankfully, or I don't know, not thankfully, a lot of the stuff that's indies is available online on the internet, but not everything is. I know one in particular that I've had my eyes on for some time there is a Go Nagai Super Robot World book. Actually, I think there's a couple of them that covers like Great Mazinga, Grendizer, all those, Jeeg maybe, Guy King, I'm not even sure. But those have the line art as well, and that's one thing I've really, really wanted ever since I was a little kid, watching Tranzor Z back when I was in first grade. Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, so if you ever come across these and you're not sure what they are, because they are out there still, they are your guidebook and your entryway into a whole long-lost but well-preserved world of fandom. So yeah, definitely I gotta get me some more of those. And hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble on down a trip on memory lane here as I go right back on eBay and start hunting for some more and make a shopping list for my kids before they end up getting back from Japan. So yeah, with that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.